Hello, hello. Hello, fellow witches and wizards. My name is PhoenixGinny, and welcome to the stream. Welcome back to Storytime Saturday, number 14. And today we're going to be reading chapters 10 and 11 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Please forgive me if you hear any weird noises in the background, other than my computer. You can always hear that. I happen to live right by a basketball court and a playground, so there's children screaming constantly. It's a nice day out, so they're out playing out there, so you might hear a little bit of that. I'm feeling a little under the weather today. I say that I haven't slept in 2 days, but I actually haven't really slept in like a month, so to be honest, my stomach hasn't been good, just been under a lot of stress, so just forgive me if I'm not as energetic as I usually am. This could potentially be my last stream for a while, and I had an interview today. That's why I'm kind of dressed kind of nice. I'm not dressed for the stream. This is just what I wore for my interview, except my Harry Potter stuff. I wouldn't do that. Unless it was Hot Topic. Oh man, that'd be a job. They'd never hire me though. I'm too old. And I look too put together. Anyway. But I've applied for Hot Topic a couple times though. They never ever get back to me. It's so sad. Anyway, whatever happens, I applied for that fast food job I talked about yesterday, and my orientation is on Tuesday. Okay, but I don't actually want that job. I want the other retail job that I was looking to get, and I passed the assessment. And I'm scheduled for an interview, so I'm going to call them tomorrow and see what's going on. And if I can get that job, I'll go for that one instead. But bottom line, whatever happens, I will probably start working this week, which means no more regular streaming, because both kinds of jobs means a different schedule every week. So I can't be like, hey, I'm streaming Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. I can't be like that anymore. So I will probably stream. But I don't know. I don't know if I want to stream on a whim, because I don't know how many people would show up to that. So I will probably stream on a day off or something. If I feel like streaming, I might do that, and I will post on Twitter if that's gonna happen. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description, so you'll know if I choose to stream on some random day at some random time. But otherwise, I will continue to upload. I mean, it looks like I'm gonna get to stay in my apartment, though I say that cautiously because you never know. Like, employment with me has never been stable, so I could very well get a job and lose it next week for whatever reason, and still have to leave my apartment. If I do, I would have to quit YouTube altogether. But the way things look right now, I can still do YouTube. So I'm going to keep doing it. So I'm going to keep uploading, at least. I will still do Storytime Saturdays. I don't know if they'll still be on Saturday. I might attempt to at least post them on Saturday. And I will still read to you. We might not be able to discuss together at one time, but I will still read to you and discuss it and do what I normally do. It just won't be live. I'll have to put that on top of everything else I do on this channel. There's so many things I need to finish. But then I think about my channel, like I'm constantly thinking about, I gotta finish this series. I gotta finish this game so I can move on to the next game. I gotta finish it. And it makes me feel like I'm not doing anything for my channel. And then I actually go on my channel and I'm like, I've actually done a lot. I probably have at least 50 videos on my channel by now. Probably more. I haven't counted. I don't know. But I've finished a ton of games. I finished a a ton of stuff on my channel. And there's a lot of YouTube channels where they don't finish stuff. A lot of times they pick up stuff and then walk away from it. I don't do that. I'll try to finish everything that I start, which is why I never finish. I don't really finish things because I always start new things. But yeah, no, I look at my channel, I'm like, I finished a lot of things. I have so many Sherlock Holmes games. I finished the True Fear series. I finished a couple of Nancy Drew games. It's good. It's good stuff. Okay. So I'm hoping to finish that stuff. But now that I don't have streaming, it's going to be really tough to finish things. And it was hard already. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I hope that I have more free time than I think I'm going to. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to read. So welcome, especially if you're new. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Doesn't matter what sort of wizard you are or if you're not a wizard at all. As we get those here too. And doesn't matter what house you're in, or even if you didn't attend Hogwarts at all, maybe you attended the American schools or a school wherever in the world, doesn't matter. You're welcome. And this isn't strictly an audiobook if you haven't joined before. So I will read it, and I will stop every once in a while and I will talk about it. I will discuss literary devices and word choice, and also just general fangirling that is not important. But that being said, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't read before and you would like to, and you don't want things spoiled, I suggest you watch something else. Yes, so commentary, lots of commentary. If you hate that, I suggest you listen to the audiobook or read the book yourself. Yes, and this is live, so feel free to join the chat. The chat is broken from the back end on my YouTube. I don't know why. So I have it up on my phone. So I'm seeing it from the front end. So if I miss your comment or it takes me a while to get to it, forgive me, and I will be checking periodically. I check about every page or so. Every time I finish a page, I check, usually. And discuss it with me, or just say hi. But if you're watching the video after the fact, because I do upload the stream, I cut down, not really, I just take out the intermissions and the starting soon screen. I just cut that out and I upload the video to YouTube for regular viewing. If you're watching the video after the fact, leave a comment there too. Also, if you're watching this on the stream, during the stream, or when it's no longer live, or if you're watching the upload, please click the like button. Or the dislike button. If you dislike it, go ahead, click that dislike button, because that counts too. Tells YouTube that you like the video, and it'll share the video with other people. And click the subscribe button at the bottom if you would like more content like this, and click the bell icon so you can be notified the next time I go live and the next time I upload. And as I mentioned before, follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Okay, so I got my water, a little dehydrated today, so we're going to hydrate. Okay. Alright, and as always, let me know if you can hear me okay. It's also a little toasty in here. I've been in my room all day. I've been in bed, pretty much, except for the interview. Interviews wear me out, so I bought my groceries, came home, and just crashed. It's 79 outside today, so it's a little hot, and I can't run my air conditioner because it's too loud. And I forgot to run it before the stream. I often run my air conditioner before the stream so it gets nice and cool in here so I can just turn it off. But I forgot to do that, so it's a little warm. Okay, chapter 10. Now, last time things started getting interesting. We went to the Death Day party, and we came across the writing on the wall. So the Chamber of Secrets has been opened, and now everybody's wondering who the heir of Slytherin is. All right, we're going to talk more about that this chapter, I believe. This chapter and the next chapter, actually. Chapter 10, The Rogue Bludger. Since the disastrous episode of the Pixies, Professor Lockhart had not brought live creatures to class. Instead, he read passages from his books to them, and sometimes reenacted some of the more dramatic bits. He usually picked Harry to help him with these reconstructions. So far, Harry had been forced to play a simple Transylvanian villager whom Lockhart had cured of a babbling curse, a yeti with a head cold, and a vampire who had been unable to eat anything except lettuce since Lockhart had dealt with him. Poor vampire. Why you gotta tell a vampire how to live? Harry had hauled to the front of the class during their very next Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson. Watch this. This time acting a werewolf. If he hadn't had a very good reason for keeping Lockhart in a good mood, he would have refused to do it. Nice loud howl, Harry. Exactly. And then, if you'll believe it, I pounced, like this, slammed him to the floor. Thus, with one hand, I managed to hold him down with my other. I put my wand to his throat. I then screwed up my remaining strength and performed the immensely complex homorphous charm. He let out a piteous moan. Go on, Harry. Higher than that. Good. The fur vanished and the fangs shrank, and he turned back into a man. Simple, yet effective. And another village will remember me forever as the hero who delivered them from the monthly terror of werewolf attacks. Can you imagine Harry howling like a werewolf in front of the whole class? I would kill to see that. I wish they put that in the movie because that would have been hilarious. Oh my goodness. Seeing Daniel Radcliffe act like a werewolf would have just been priceless. I would have enjoyed that. He probably would have enjoyed that too, let's be honest. If you know anything about him, he's quite, he's not like Harry at all. He's not shy. He's quite extroverted. He's quite outgoing, very social, and he's open to new experiences. And he's not a stranger to making a fool of himself. He does it quite often. So, oh man, that would have been fun. I wish. Anyway, water time. The bell rang and Lockhart got to his feet. Homework. Compose a poem about my defeat of the Wagga Wagga werewolf. Or Wagga Wagga, I don't know. Signed copies of Magical Me to the author of the best one. Oh, man. How useless is this class? I mean, I know that Quirrell had Voldemort in the back of his head, but I bet you they at least learned something. Oh my goodness. What a waste of time. The class began to leave. Oh, also, you can't cure werewolves. I don't know what happened here. I don't think he cured him. He probably just turned him back into a man. You can make a potion that allows them to keep their presence of mind while they're a werewolf, so they know not to attack anybody. They can just hide away for a while. That's what Remus Lupin does. He takes his monthly potion. That's what Sirius Black means. We don't talk about it. They don't talk about it in the movie. But that's what Sirius Black means when he's like, have you taken your potion tonight? Because if he had, he would turn into a wolf, but he would know who he was and who his friends were, and he would know not to attack them. Yeah, I don't know what this is. Homorphous charm. I think, well, homo means... What is homo? Homo means man. Am I right about that? As in homo sapien, like human being? I don't know. Am I right about that? I don't know what that... Homorphous charm. Supposedly... Let me look this up. I don't want to just pretend like I know. I don't know if I want to look this up. Yes, the prefix, please. Same, identical. Okay, that makes sense. Then why is it called Homo sapien? what does Homo sapien mean? Is Homo sapien a bad word? Wise man. What? That's not what it means. I thought homo meant sane. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure out the meaning of the charms. What J.K. Rowling does is she uses Latin to make her charms. And so I'm trying to figure out what she's trying to say by homorphous. Homorphous. And so I'm trying to figure out what she's trying to say about this spell. Homorphous charm. That is what I'm looking for. Harry Potter Wiki to the rescue. I know kind of what it does. Incantation unknown. To temporarily change a transformed werewolf back into human form. Well, I mean, if you can do that, why didn't they just do that to Remus Lupin if that's a thing? I mean, I'd say that no, Lockhart couldn't have made it up. It's not other people are reading his books, they would have known he made it up. I don't understand. If you can do that, the only spell known to wizard kind that is capable of curing werewolves. It doesn't cure werewolves. No, this is bogus. Oh, Wagga Wagga is in Australia. Oh, interesting. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Although the spell is described as a charm, it describes effects seem closer to transfiguration. Alternatively, since the wounds left by a werewolf bite are cursed by werewolf Remus Lupin, and by extension the condition of lycanthropy, could be seen as a type of bloodborne curse. As such, homorphous charm might be a counter curse which can reverse the transformation. Counticus. I still don't understand why they didn't just use that. Why didn't they just use that on Remus Lupin? I don't understand. Snape was there. There's no way he wouldn't have known about this charm. I don't know. No. Harry Potter's infallible. Everything must make sense. I'm sure the real answer is J.K. Rowling forgot that she invented this charm. So, I don't know. That's frustrating. I'm going to write this question down. I want to never forget it. There. The bell rang and Lockhart got to his feet. Homework. Oh, I read that. Where am I? Read that. The class began to leave. Harry returned to the back of the room where Ron and Hermione were waiting. Ready? Harry muttered. Wait till everyone's gone, said Hermione nervously. All right. She approached Lockhart's desk, a piece of paper clutched tightly in her hand, Harry and Ron right behind her. Professor Lockhart, Hermione stammered. I wanted to get this book out of the library, just for background reading. She held out the piece of paper, her hand shaking slightly. But the thing is, it's in the restricted section of the library, so I need a teacher to sign for it. I'm sure it would help me understand what you say in Gadding with Ghouls about slow-acting venoms. Gadding with Ghouls, said Lockhart, taking the note from Hermione and smiling widely at her. Possibly my very favorite book. You enjoyed it? Oh, yes, said Hermione. So clever, the way you trapped that last one with the tea strainer. Well, I'm sure no one will mind me giving the best student of the year a little extra help, said Lockhart warmly, and he pulled out the enormous peacock quill. He would have that kind of quill. Yes, nice, isn't it? He said. You know, I bet you that's his Patronus, a peacock. If he could do a Patronus. He probably can't. But if he could, it'd probably be a peacock. He said, misreading the revolting look on Ron's face. I usually save it for book signings. He scrawled an enormous, loopy signature on the note and handed it back to Hermione. So, Harry, said Lockhart, while Hermione folded the note with fumbling fingers and slipped it into her bag. Tomorrow's the first Quidditch match of the season, I believe. Gryffindor against Slytherin, is it not? I hear you're a useful player. I was a seeker, too. Now, that would be easy enough to verify. Can we go to the trophy room? Can we see if Lockhart was ever a seeker? Does anybody have record of this? Because I highly doubt he was. I was asked to try for the national squad, but preferred to dedicate my life to the eradication of the dark forces. Still, if ever you feel the need for a little private training, don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to pass on my expertise to less able players. I feel like there's something on my lip. I can't get it. Harry made an indistinct noise in his throat and then hurried off after Ron and Hermione. I don't believe it, he said as the three of them examined the signature on the note. He didn't even look at the book we wanted. That's because he's a brainless git, said Ron. But who cares? We've got what we needed. He is not a brainless git, said Hermione shrilly as they half ran toward the library. Just because he said you were the best student of the year. They dropped their voices as they entered the muffled stillness of the library. Madame Pince, the librarian, was a thin, irritable woman who looked like an underfed vulture. Most potent potions, she repeated suspiciously, trying to take the note from Hermione, but Hermione wouldn't let it go. Hermione, if you desperately want his signature, I'm sure he'll give it to you. He's signing anything that moves. Like, you don't need this. I was wondering if I could keep it, she said breathlessly. Oh, come on, said Ron, wrenching it from her grasp and thrusting it at Madame Pince. We'll get you another autograph. Lockhart will sign anything if it stands still long enough. Madame Pince held the note up to the light, as though determined to detect a forgery, but it passed the test. She stalked away between the lofty shelves and returned several minutes later, carrying a large, moldy-looking book. Hermione put it carefully into her bag, and they left, trying not to walk too quickly or look too guilty. 5 minutes later, they were barricaded in Moaning Myrtle's out-of-order bathroom once again. Hermione had overridden Ron's objections by pointing out that it was the last place anyone in their right minds would go. There is. My hair stuck to my lip. Lip gloss. Girl struggles. Or anyone who wears lipstick. Struggles. So that they were guaranteed some privacy. Moaning Myrtle was crying noisily in her stall, but they were ignoring her and she them. Hermione opened most potent potions carefully, and the three of them bent over the damp, spotted pages. It was clear from a glance why it belonged in the restricted section. Some of the potions had effects almost too gruesome to think about, and there were some very unpleasant illustrations, which included a man who seemed to have been turned inside out and a witch sprouting several extra pairs of arms out of her head. Here it is, said Hermione excitedly as she found the page headed The Polyjuice Potion. It was decorated with drawings of people halfway through transforming into other people. Harry sincerely hoped the artist had imagined the looks of intense pain on their faces. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione as they scanned the recipe. Lacewing flies, leeches, fluxweed, and knotgrass, she murmured, running her finger down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easy enough. They're in the student's store cupboard. We can help ourselves. Ooh, look, powdered horn of a bicorn. Don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin of a boomslang. That'll be tricky too. And of course a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me? Said Ron sharply. What do you mean, a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm drinking nothing with crab's toenails in it. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. We don't have to worry about that yet, though, because we add those bits last. Ron turned speechless to Harry, who had another worry. Do you realize how much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of a boomslang? That's definitely not in the student's cupboard. What are we going to do? Break into Snape's private stools? I don't know if this is a good idea. It's not a good idea. And you're not even going to get the information that you need. Hermione shut the book with a snap. But it is good for the future. It is very good to learn how to make this potion for them for later. That is true. Well, if you two are going to chicken out, fine, she said. There were bright pink patches on her cheeks and her eyes were brighter than usual. I don't want to break the rules, you know. I think... Hermione is savage. I just like what she's going to say. I don't want to break the rules, you know. I think threatening Muggleborns is far worse than brewing up a difficult potion. But if you don't want to find out if it's Malfoy, I'll go straight to Madame Pince now and hand the book back in. Whew. This is personal for her, being Muggleborn. She really wants to figure out who's doing this, and she wants to do the right thing, essentially. Yeah, wow. She's awesome. Like, she doesn't care how difficult it is. She doesn't care if she's breaking the rules. She feels like she's doing the right thing. That is awesome. I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be persuading us to break rules, said Ron. All right, we'll do it. But not toenails, okay? Ooh, almost spilled that. How long will it take to make, anyway? Said Harry as Hermione, looking happier, opened the book again. Well, since the fluxweed has got to be picked at the full moon and the lacewings have got to be stewed for 21 days, I'd say it'd be ready in about a month, if we can get all the ingredients. A month? Said Ron. Malfoy could have attacked half the Muggleborns in the school by then. That was Harry's line in the movie, not Ron's. But Hermione's eyes narrowed dangerously again, and he added swiftly, But it's the best plan we've got, so full steam ahead, I say. During my stream yesterday, I said that I have a sore on my tongue. I'd completely forgotten about it till just then because I just accidentally hit it with my teeth. Hit my tongue on my teeth. So it'll probably start hurting again. Great. Perfect for reading. However, while Hermione was checking that the coast was clear for them to leave the bathroom, Ron muttered to Harry, It'll be a lot less hassle if you can just knock Malfoy off his broom tomorrow. Harry woke early on Saturday morning and lay for a while thinking about the coming Quidditch match. He was nervous, mainly at the thought of what Wood would say if Gryffindor lost, but also at the idea of facing a team mounted on the fastest racing brooms gold could buy. He had never wanted to beat Slytherin so badly. After half an hour of lying there, with his insides churning, he got up, dressed, and went down to breakfast early, where he found the rest of the Gryffindor team huddled at the long, empty table, all looking uptight and not speaking much. So, next book, we will be introduced to the Firebolt, which will become the fastest broom ever in existence. And that's great and all, but Malfoy doesn't ever get one. I'm just thinking, does Malfoy stay in the Quidditch team? I know that Quidditch becomes less and less important as the books go on. We have Quidditch next book. There's no Quidditch in Goblet of Fire because of the Triwizard Tournament. We do have Quidditch in Order of the Phoenix, and I don't see why Malfoy wouldn't play. So why doesn't he get a Firebolt? There's no way his parents don't afford it. And it's not like he's in prison or something at that point. Why doesn't Malfoy get a Firebolt? I'm thinking it's because J.K. Rowling wanted to make sure Harry always had the best broom, even though it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. I'm going to write that down. think it's a valid question. Why doesn't Malfoy get a firebolt? As 11 o'clock approached, the whole school started to make its way down to the Quidditch stadium. It was a muggy sort of day with a hint of thunder in the air. Ron and Hermione came hurrying over to wish Harry good luck as he entered the locker rooms. The team pulled on their scarlet Gryffindor robes, then sat down to listen to Wood's usual pre-match pep talk. Slytherin has better brooms than us, he began. No point denying it. But we've got better people on our brooms. We've trained harder than they have. We've been flying in all weathers. Too true, muttered George Weasley. I haven't been properly dry since August. And we're going to make them rue the day that they let that little bit of slime, Malfoy, buy his way onto their team. Chest heaving with emotion, Wood turned to Harry. It'll be down to you, Harry, to show them that a seeker has to have something more than a rich father. Get to that snitch before Malfoy, or die trying. Harry, because we've got to win today, we've got to. So no pressure, Harry, said Fred, winking at him. As they walked out onto the pitch, a roar of noise greeted them. Mainly cheers, because Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were anxious to see Slytherin beaten, but the Slytherins in the crowd made their boos and hisses heard, too. Madam Pooch, I keep switching Quidditch and Gryffindor around. The Quidditch teacher asked, I don't know if she's a teacher. Maybe. Asked Flint and Wood to shake hands. And I don't know if it's Quidditch she teaches. She just teaches flying, I guess. I don't know. Which they did, giving each other threatening stares and gripping rather harder than was necessary. On my whistle, said Madam Hooch. 3, 2, 1. With a roar from the crowd to speed them on upward, the 14 players rose toward the leaden sky or leaden sky? I don't know. I don't know what it means either. Not really. The word leaden. Or is it leaden? It looks like leaden. Dull, heavy, or slow. Of the color of lead. That's what I thought it was.
Leaden.
Leaden. Awesome. That's how you pronounce it. Sounds good. Okay. Leaden. Gotta write it down. Harry flew higher than any of them, squinting around for the snitch. All right there, Scarhead, yelled Malfoy, shooting underneath him as though to show off the speed of his broom. You know, Malfoy might be a decent Quidditch player if he just would stop trying to showboat. If he would stop trying to outdo Harry. If he would focus on the game and winning, he probably would have. But no, he has to worry about what Harry's doing and make sure that Harry's being taunted at every other minute. Harry had no time to reply. At that very moment, a heavy black bludger came pelting toward him. He avoided it so narrowly that he felt it ruffle his hair as it passed. Close one, Harry, said George, streaking past him with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back toward a Slytherin. Harry saw George give the bludger a powerful whack in the direction of Adrian Pusey. What a gross name, Pusey. But the bludger changed direction in midair and shot straight for Harry again. Harry dropped quickly to avoid it, and George managed to hit it hard toward Malfoy. Once again the bludger swerved like a boomerang and shot at Harry's head. Harry put on a burst of speed and zoomed toward the other end of the pitch. He could hear the bludger whistling along behind him. What's going on? What was going on? Bludgers never concentrated on one player like this. It was their job to try and unseat as many people as possible. Fred Weasley was waiting for the bludger at the other end. Harry ducked as Fred swung at the bludger with all his might. The bludger was knocked off course. Gotcha! Fred yelled happily, but he was wrong. As though it was magnetically attracted to Harry, the bludger pelted after him once more, and Harry was forced to fly off at full speed. It had started to rain. Harry felt heavy drops fall onto his face, splattering onto his glasses. He didn't have a clue what was going on in the rest of the game until he heard Lee Jordan, who was commentating, say, "Slytherin lead, 60 points to 0. The Slytherin's superior brooms were clearly doing their jobs, and meanwhile the Mad Bludger was doing all it could to knock Harry out of the air. Fred and George were now flying so close to him on either side that Harry could see nothing at all except their flailing arms and had no chance to look for the snitch, let alone catch it. "Someone's tampered with this bludger," Fred grunted, swinging his bat with all his might as it launched a new attack on Harry. "We need time out," said George, trying to signal to Wood and stop the bludger, breaking Harry's nose at the same time. Wood had obviously got the message. Madam Hooch's whistle rang out, and Harry, Fred, and George dived for the ground, still trying to avoid the Mad Bludger. "What's going on?" said Wood, as the Gryffindor team huddled together, while Slytherins in the crowd jeered. "We're being flattened. Fred, George, where were you when that bludger stopped Angelina scoring?" "We were 20 feet above her, stopping the other bludger from murdering Harry, Oliver," said George angrily. "Someone's fixed it. It won't leave Harry alone. It hasn't gone for anyone else all game. The Slytherins must have done something to it." "But the bludgers have been locked in Madam Hooch's office since our last practice." "And there was nothing wrong with him then?" said Wood anxiously. Madam Hooch was walking toward them. Over her shoulder, Harry could see the Slytherin team jeering and pointing in his direction. "Listen," said Harry as she came nearer and nearer. "With you two flying around me all the time, the only way I'm going to catch the snitch is if it flies up my sleeve. Go back to the rest of the team and let me deal with the rogue one." Sorry, there's a tassel on my bookmark and it hits the desk. "Don't be thick," said Fred. "It'll take your head off." Wood was looking from Harry to the Weasleys. "Oliver, this is insane," said Alicia Spinnet angrily. "You can't let Harry deal with that thing on his own. Let's ask for an inquiry." If we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match," said Harry. "And we're not losing to Slytherin just because of a crazy bludger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone." "This is all your fault," George said angrily to Wood. "Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell him." Madam Hooch had joined them. "Ready to resume play?" she asked Wood. Wood looked at the determined look on Harry's face. "Quidditch is serious business." "All right," he said. "Fred, George, you heard Harry. Leave him alone, and let him deal with the bludger on his own." The rain was falling more heavily now. On Madam Hooch's whistle, Harry kicked hard into the air and heard the telltale whoosh of the bludger behind him. Higher and higher Harry climbed. He looped and swooped, spiraled, zigzagged, and rolled. Slightly dizzy, he nevertheless kept his eyes wide open. Rain was speckling his glasses and ran up his nostrils as he hung upside down, avoiding another fierce dive from the bludger. He could hear laughter from the crowd. He knew he must look very stupid, but the rogue bludger was heavy and couldn't change direction as quickly as Harry could. He began a kind of roller coaster ride around the edges of the stadium, squinting through the silver sheets of rain to the Gryffindor goalposts, where Adrian Pusey was trying to get past Wood. A whistling in Harry's ear told him the bludger had just missed him again. He turned right over and sped in the opposite direction. "Training for the ballet, Potter!" yelled Malfoy as Harry was forced to do a stupid kind of twirl in midair to dodge the bludger, and he fled, the bludger trailing a few feet behind him, and then, glaring back at Malfoy in hatred, he saw it. The golden snitch. It was hovering inches above Malfoy's left ear, and Malfoy, busy laughing at Harry, hadn't seen it, like I said. For an agonizing moment, Harry hung in midair, not daring to speed toward Malfoy in case he looked up and saw the snitch. Wham! He had stayed still a second too long. The bludger had hit him at last, smashed into his elbow, and Harry felt his arm break. Dimly, dazed by the searing pain in his arm, he slid sideways on his rain-drenched broom, one knee still crooked over it, his right arm dangling useless at his side. The bludger came pelting back for a second attack, this time aiming at his face. Harry swerved out of the way, one idea firmly lodged in his numb brain. Get to Malfoy. Through a haze of rain and pain, he dived for the shimmering, sneering face below him and saw its eyes widen with fear. Malfoy thought Harry was attacking him. "What the—" he gasped, careening out of Harry's way. Harry took his remaining hand off his broom and made a wild snatch. He felt his fingers close on the cold snitch, but was now only gripping the broom with his legs, and there was a yell from the crowd below as he headed straight for the ground, trying hard not to pass out. With a splattering thud, he hit the mud and rolled off his broom. His arm was hanging at a very strange angle. Riddled with pain, he heard, as though from a distance, a good deal of whistling and shouting. He focused on the snitch clutched in his good hand. "Ha," he said vaguely. "We've won." And he fainted. He came around, rain falling on his face, still lying on the field, with someone leaning over him. He saw a glitter of teeth. "Oh no, not you," he moaned. "Doesn't know what he's saying," said Lockhart loudly to the anxious crowd of Gryffindors pressing around them. "Not to worry, Harry. I'm about to fix your arm." "No," said Harry. "I'll keep it like this, thanks." "No, I'll keep it like this, thanks." He tried to sit up, but the pain was terrible. He heard a familiar clicking noise nearby. "I don't want a photo of this, Colin," he said loudly. "Lie back, Harry," said Lockhart soothingly. "It's a simple charm. I've used it countless times." "Why can't I just go to the hospital wing?" said Harry through clenched teeth. "You should really, Professor," said a muddy Wood, who couldn't help grinning even though his seeker was injured. "Great capture, Harry. Really spectacular. Your best yet, I'd say." Through the thicket of legs around him, Harry spotted Fred and George Weasley wrestling the Rogue Bludger into a box. It was still putting up a terrific fight. "Stand back," said Lockhart, who was rolling up his jade-green sleeves. "No, don't," said Harry weakly, but Lockhart was twirling his wand and a second later had directed it straight at Harry's arm. A strange and unpleasant sensation started at Harry's shoulder and spread all the way down to his fingertips. It felt as though his arm was being deflated. He didn't dare look at what had happened. He had shut his eyes, his face turned away from his arm, but his worst fears were realized as the people above him gasped and Colin Creevey began clicking away madly. His arm didn't hurt anymore, nor did it feel remotely like an arm. "Ah," said Lockhart. "Yes. Well, that can sometimes happen. But the point is, the bones are no longer broken. That's the thing to bear in mind. So, Harry, just toddle up to the hospital wing. Ah, Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, would you escort him? And Madame Pomfrey will be able to, tidy you up a bit." As Harry got to his feet, he felt strangely lopsided. Taking a deep breath, he looked down at his right side. What he saw nearly made him pass out again. Poking out of the end of his robes was what looked like a thick, flesh-colored rubber glove. He tried to move his fingers. Nothing happened. Lockhart hadn't mended Harry's bones. He had removed them. Madame Pomfrey wasn't at all pleased. "You should have come straight to me," she raged, holding up the sad, limp remainder of what, half an hour before, had been a working arm. "I can mend bones in a second, but growing them back—" "You will be able to, won't you?" said Harry desperately. "I'll be able to, certainly, but it will be painful," said Madame Pomfrey grimly, throwing Harry a pair of pajamas. "You'll have to stay the night." Hermione waited outside the curtain drawn around Harry's bed while Ron helped him into his pajamas. It took a while to stuff the rubbery, boneless arm into a sleeve. "How can you stick up for Lockhart now, Hermione, eh?" Ron called through the curtain as he pulled Harry's limp fingers through the cuff. "If Harry had wanted deboning, he would have asked." "Anyone can make a mistake," said Hermione, "and it doesn't hurt anymore, does it, Harry?" "No," said Harry, getting into bed, "but it doesn't do anything else either." As he swung himself onto the bed, his arm flopped pointlessly. Hermione and Madame Pomfrey came around the corner. Madame Pomfrey was holding a large bottle of something labeled Skelgro. Yep. Skelligro. It's probably Skelligro. "You're in for a rough night," she said, pouring out a steaming beaker full and handing it to him. "Regrowing bones is a nasty business." She was taking the Skelegro. So was taking the Scarecrow. I knew that didn't make sense. It burned Harry's mouth and throat as it went down, making him cough and splutter. Still tut-tutting about dangerous sports and inept teachers, Madame Pomfrey retreated, leaving Ron and Hermione to help Harry gulp down some water. "We won, though," said Ron, a grin breaking across his face. "That was some catch you made, Malfoy's face. He looked ready to kill." "I want to know how he fixed that bludger," said Hermione darkly. "We can add that to the list of questions we'll ask him when we're taking the Polyjuice Potion," said Harry, sinking back into his pillows. "I hope it tastes better than this stuff." "If it's got bits of Slytherins in it, you've got to be joking," said Ron. The door of the hospital wing burst open at that moment. Filthy and soaking wet, the rest of the Gryffindor team had arrived to see Harry. "Unbelievable flying, Harry," said George. I've just seen Marcus Flint yelling at Malfoy, something about having the snitch on top of his head and not noticing. Malfoy didn't seem too happy. They had brought cakes, sweets, and bottles of pumpkin juice. They gathered around Harry's bed and were just getting started on what promised to be a good party when Madame Pomfrey came storming over, shouting, "This boy needs rest. He's got 33 bones to regrow. Out! Out!" And Harry was left alone, with nothing to distract him from the stabbing pains in his limp arm. Hours and hours later, Harry woke quite suddenly in the pitch blackness and gave a small yelp of pain. His arm now felt full of large splinters. For a second, he thought that was what had woken him. Then, with a thrill of horror, he realized that someone was sponging his forehead in the dark. "Get off," he said loudly, and then, "Dobby!" The house elf's goggling tennis ball eyes were peering at Harry through the darkness. A single tear was running down his long pointed nose. "Harry Potter came back to school," he whispered miserably. "Dobby warned and warned Harry Potter. Ah, sir, why didn't you heed Dobby? Why didn't Harry Potter go back home when he missed the train?" Harry heaved himself up on his pillows and pushed Dobby's sponge away. "What are you doing here?" he said. "And how did you know I missed the train?" Dobby's lip trembled, and Harry was seized by a sudden suspicion. "It was you," he said slowly. "You stopped the barrier from letting us through." "Indeed, yes, sir," said Dobby, nodding his head vigorously, ears flapping. "Dobby hid and watched for Harry Potter and sealed the gateway, and Dobby had to iron his hands afterward." He showed Harry 10 long bandaged fingers. "But Dobby didn't care, sir, for he thought Harry Potter was safe, and never did Dobby dream that Harry Potter would get to school another way." He was rocking backward and forward, shaking his ugly head. "Dobby was so shocked when he heard Harry Potter was back at Hogwarts. He let his master's dinner burn. Such a flogging Dobby never had, sir." Harry slumped back onto his pillows. "You nearly got Ron and me expelled," he said fiercely. "You'd better get lost before my bones come back, Dobby, or I might strangle you." Dobby smiled weakly. "Dobby's used to death threats, sir. Dobby gets them 5 times a day at home." He blew his nose on a corner of the filthy pillowcase he wore, looking so pathetic that Harry felt his anger ebb away in spite of himself. "Why do you wear that thing, Dobby?" he asked curiously. "This, sir," said Dobby, plucking at the pillowcase. "'Tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his master presents him with clothes, sir. The family is careful not to pass Dobby even a sock, sir, for then he would be free to leave their house forever." Dobby mopped his bulging eyes and said suddenly, "Harry Potter must go home." Dobby thought his bludger would be enough to make— "Your bludger?" said Harry, anger rising once more. "What do you mean, your bludger? You made that bludger try and kill me?" "Not kill you, sir. Never kill you," said Dobby, shocked. "Dobby wants to save Harry Potter's life. Better sent home, grievously injured, than remain here, sir. Dobby only wanted Harry Potter hurt enough to be sent home." "Oh, is that all?" said Harry angrily. "I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you wanted me sent home in pieces." "Ah, if Harry Potter only knew," Dobby groaned, more tears dripping onto his ragged pillowcase. "If he knew what he means to us, To the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Darby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his powers, sir. We house elves were treated like vermin, sir. Of course Darby is still treated like that, sir, he admitted, drying his face on the pillowcase. But mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir, and Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end, sir. And now, at Hogwarts, terrible things are to happen, or perhaps happening already, and Darby cannot let Harry Potter stay here, now that history is to repeat itself, now that the Chamber of Secrets is open once more. Dobby froze, horror-struck, then grabbed Harry's water jug from his bedside table and cracked it over his own head, toppling out of sight. A second later, he crawled back onto the bed, cross-eyed, muttering, "Bad Dobby. Very bad Dobby." I'm gonna make a note. Not saying that Harry Potter is Jesus, but I think J.K. Rowling sometimes makes reference to him being a Christ-like character. And I think the way Dobby talks about Harry is one of those times. Dobby froze, horror-struck, then grabbed Harry's water jug from... Oh, I read that. So there is a Chamber of Secrets, Harry whispered. And did you say it's been opened before? Tell me, Dobby. He seized the elf's bony wrist as Dobby's hand inched toward the water jug. But I'm not Muggle-born. How can I be in danger from the chamber? Ah, sir, ask no more of poor Dobby, stammered the elf, his eyes huge in the dark. Dark deeds are planned in this place, but Harry Potter must not be here when they happen. Go home, Harry Potter, go home. Harry Potter must not meddle in this, sir. 'Tis too dangerous. Who is it, Dobby? Harry said, keeping a firm hold on Dobby's wrist to stop him from hitting himself with the water jug again. Who's opened it? Who opened it last time? Dobby can't, sir, Dobby can't. Dobby mustn't tell, squealed the elf. Go home, Harry Potter, go home. I'm not going anywhere, said Harry fiercely. One of my best friends is Muggle-born. She'll be first in line if the chamber really has been opened. Harry Potter risks his own life for his friends, moaned Dobby in a kind of miserable ecstasy. So noble, so valiant, but he must save himself, he must. Harry Potter must not. Dobby suddenly froze, his bat ears quivering. Harry heard it, too. There were footsteps coming down the passageway outside. Dobby must go, breathed the elf, terrified. There was a loud crack, and Harry's fist was suddenly clenched on thin air. He slumped back into bed, his eyes on the dark doorway to the hospital wing as the footsteps drew nearer. Next moment, Dumbledore was backing into the dormitory, wearing a long, woolly dressing gown and a nightcap. He was carrying one end of what looked like a statue. Professor McGonagall appeared a second later, carrying its feet. Together, they heaved it onto a bed. Get Madame Pomfrey, whispered Dumbledore, and Professor McGonagall hurried past the end of Harry's bed, out of sight. Harry lay quite still, pretending to be asleep. He heard urgent voices, and then Professor McGonagall swept back into view, closely followed by Madame Pomfrey, who was pulling a cardigan on over her nightdress. He heard a sharp intake of breath. What happened? Madame Pomfrey whispered to Dumbledore, bending over the statue on the bed. Another attack, said Dumbledore. Minerva found him on the stairs. There was a bunch of grapes next to him, said Professor McGonagall. We think he was trying to sneak up here to visit Potter. Harry's stomach gave a horrible lurch. Slowly and carefully he raised himself a few inches so he could look at the statue on the bed. A ray of moonlight lay across its staring face. It was Colin Creevey. His eyes were wide and his hands were stuck up in front of him, holding his camera. "Petrified," whispered Madame Pomfrey. "Yes," said Professor McGonagall, "but I shudder to think. If Albus hadn't been on the way downstairs for hot chocolate, who knows what might have—" The three of them stared down at Colin. Then Dumbledore leaned forward and wrenched the camera out of Colin's rigid grip. "You don't think he managed to get a picture of his attacker?" said Professor McGonagall eagerly. Dumbledore didn't answer. He opened the back of the camera. "Good gracious," said Madame Pomfrey. A jet of steam had hissed out of the camera. Harry, 3 beds away, caught the acrid smell of burnt plastic. "Melted," said Madame Pomfrey wonderingly. "All melted. What does this mean, Albus?" Professor McGonagall asked urgently. "It means," said Dumbledore, "that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again." Madame Pomfrey clapped a hand to her mouth. Professor McGonagall stared at Dumbledore. "But Albus, surely—" "Who? The question is not who," said Dumbledore, his eyes on Colin. "The question is how." And from what Harry could see of Professor McGonagall's shadowy face, she didn't understand this any better than he did. I understand. I understand perfectly. Dumbledore already knows. He already knows who. Of course it's Voldemort. He immediately suspects it. He just doesn't know exactly how Voldemort is doing it, because clearly Voldemort isn't actually here. But that is the end of Chapter 10. And after the break, we will read Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. Welcome back. Now, it is time to read Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. Now, weird thing. The picture for the chapter title for the Scholastic version, I, for whatever reason, when I read this, I couldn't figure out who that was. For the longest time, I'd look at that and I'm like, who's that supposed to be? And, I thought it was, Lockhart, I don't know, being struck by a spell or something. And I was like, but no, he has a sword. I don't understand. Who is this? It's nearly Headless Nick, as we will come to find he will be petrified. And I don't know, as a kid, I guess it didn't connect in my brain. But I had to, whatever time I made a note, whatever time I made that note is when I figured out, oh, that's supposed to be Nick. And you can even see how his neck is a little ripped there. It's kind of hard to see, but his neck is kind of ripped. Because he's nearly Headless Nick. Weird thing. I don't know. Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. Harry woke up on Sunday morning to find the dormitory blazing with winter sunlight, and his arm reboned, but very stiff. He sat up quickly and looked over at Colin's bed, but it had been blocked from view by the high curtains Harry had changed behind yesterday. Seeing that he was awake, Madame Pomfrey came bustling over with a breakfast tray, and then began bending and stretching his arm and fingers. "All in order?" she said, as he clumsily fed himself porridge left-handed. "When you've finished eating, you may leave." Harry dressed as quickly as he could and hurried off to Gryffindor Tower, desperate to tell Ron and Hermione about Colin and Dobby. But they weren't there. Harry left to look for them, wondering where they could have got to, and feeling slightly hurt that they weren't interested in whether he had his bones back or not. As Harry passed the library, Percy Weasley strolled out of it, looking in far better spirits than the last time they'd met. Again, a red herring. As I mentioned before, Percy's going to look very suspicious for a little while. We see him pop up in random places. And he's currently passing the library, and he looks to be in good spirits about something. And Colin Creevey was just found petrified. Could Percy have something to do with it? J.K. Rowling is kind of making it look like he might be. "Oh, hello, Harry." he said. Excellent flying yesterday. Really excellent. Gryffindor has just taken the lead for the House Cup. You earned 50 points. Of course, I don't know if I want to spoil it. I mean, I do say spoilers, and I don't know. I don't know if I should spoil it. I just think it's funny how he looks to be in better spirits, and I'm just wondering, like, what's he up to? As spoiler alert, he's actually sneaking around with his girlfriend. That's actually what's happening. He's found in odd places because he has a girlfriend and he doesn't want anybody to know because he'll be teased something awful. Yeah. And so I'm just like, he's in far better spirits, huh? What's going on, Percy? Anyway. You haven't seen Ron or Hermione, have you? Said Harry. No, I haven't, said Percy, his smile fading. I hope Ron's not in another girl's toilet. Harry forced a laugh. Yeah, That's probably where they are. Watched Percy walk out of sight and then headed straight for Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. He couldn't see why Ron and Hermione would be in there again. But after making sure that neither Filch nor any prefects were around, he opened the door and heard their voices coming from a locked stall. Stop. Fanfiction writers, stop there. It's me, he said, closing the door behind him. There's a cluck, a splash, a clunk, a splash, and a gasp from within the stall, and he saw Hermione's eyes peering through the keyhole. This isn't making things better. Stop. They're 12. Harry, she said, you gave me such a fright. Come in. How's your arm? Fine, said Harry, squeezing into the stall. An old cauldron was perched on the toilet, and a crackling from under the rim told Harry that they had lit a fire beneath it. In the toilet? Conjuring up portable, waterproof fires, okay, J.K. Rowling made sure that we understood that they're waterproof, was a specialty of Hermione's, and she'll continue to use these throughout the series. We'd have come to meet you, but we decided to get started on the Polyjuice Potion, Ron explained as Harry, with difficulty, locked the stall again. We've decided this is the safest place to hide it. Harry started to tell them about Colin, but Hermione interrupted. You already know. We heard Professor McGonagall telling Professor Flitwick this morning. That's why we decided we'd better get going. The sooner we get a confession out of Malfoy, the better, snarled Ron. Do you know what I think? He was in such a foul temper after the Quidditch match, he took it out on Colin. There's something else. Another red herring. Malfoy is the primary red herring. Said Harry, watching Hermione tearing bundles of knot grass and throwing them into the potion. Dobby came to visit me in the middle of the night. Ron and Hermione looked up, amazed. Harry told them everything Dobby had told him, or hadn't told him. Hermione and Ron listened with their mouths open. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened before, Hermione said. This settles it, said Ron in a triumphant voice. Lucius Malfoy must have opened the chamber when he was at school here, and now he's told dear old Draco how to do it. It's funny, they're right, but they're not right at the same time. Lucius Malfoy is the villain in this story, but not because he opened the Chamber of Secrets. He's not the heir of Slytherin. Again, he wishes he was. It's obvious. Wish Dobby told you what kind of monster's in there, though. I want to know how come nobody's noticed it sneaking around the school. Maybe it can make itself invisible, said Hermione, prodding leeches to the bottom of the cauldron. Or maybe it can disguise itself, pretend to be a suit of armor or something. I've read about chameleon ghouls. You read too much, Hermione, said Ron, pouring dead lace wings on top of the leeches. He crumpled up the empty lace wing bag and looked at Harry. So Dobby stopped us from getting on the train and broke your arm. He shook his head. You know what, Harry? If he doesn't stop trying to save your life, he's going to kill you. Well, yeah. Yeah. Or get himself killed. Yeah. The news that Colin Creevey had been attacked and was now lying as though dead in the hospital wing had spread through the entire school by Monday morning. The air was suddenly thick with rumor and suspicion. The first years were now moving around the castle in tight-knit groups, as though scared they would be attacked if they ventured forth alone. Now, this paragraph is really important. You can tell because I underlined it and put a star by it. The star symbol means it's important. It's like central to the story with what's going on here. Central. It's a clue. It's not foreshadowing necessarily, but it's a clue. Ginny Weasley, who sat next to Colin Creevey in Charms, was distraught, but Harry felt that Fred and George were going the wrong way about cheering her up. They were taking turns covering themselves with fur or boils and jumping out at her from behind statues. They only stopped when Percy, apoplectic with rage. That's a beautiful word. I don't know what it means. Apoplectic. I think that's how you pronounce it. Apoplectic. Beautiful.
Apoplectic.
Apoplectic. Oh, I love that.
Apoplectic.
Apoplectic. Overcome with anger, extremely indignant. That is such a good word. Overcome. If it's overcome with anger, apoplectic with rage. So he's overcome with rage. So then the with rage part really isn't necessary, but that's okay. Rage.
Apoplectic.
Fun. I love that. Told them he was going to write to Mrs. Weasley and tell her Ginny was having nightmares. So, Ginny is very upset. Now, J.K. Rowling tries to tell us that it's because Colin Creevey sat next to her. Which is partly true, I'm sure, but there's more going on with Ginny Weasley than we currently know. Meanwhile, hidden from the teachers, a roaring trade in talismans, amulets, and other protective devices was sweeping the school, which is another thing that pops up in Half-Blood Prince. Chamber of Secrets twin book. You'll hear me mention it all the time. Remember the pyramid. So the second book and the sixth books have a lot of things in common in particular. And that's one of them. That's another thing that they find that become popular all of a sudden, amulets and stuff. Fake amulets, snake oil and all kinds of stuff. Because the Dark Lord has returned. That is something that we find in Half-Blood Prince. And I will mark it as such. Neville Longbottom bought a large, evil-smelling green onion, a pointed purple crystal, and a rotting newt tail before the other Gryffindor boys pointed out that he was in no danger. He was a pureblood, and therefore unlikely to be attacked. They went for Filch first, Neville said, his round face fearful, and everyone knows I'm almost a squib. In the second week of December, Professor McGonagall came around as usual, collecting names of those who would be staying at school for Christmas. Harry, Ron, and Hermione signed her list. They had heard that Malfoy was staying, which struck them as very suspicious. That is odd. Why is he staying? The holidays would be the perfect time to use the Polyjuice Potion and try to worm a confession out of him. I don't know if we ever get a reason. Oh, wait. I think he says he stays because he wants to see more Bogaborns taken. He wants to see the monster do its work because he's icky. Because he's evil. Or at least likes to play like he is. I think that's why he chooses to stay. Unfortunately, the potion was only half finished. They still needed the bicorn horn and the boomslang skin, and the only place they were going to get them was from Snape's private stores. Harry privately felt he'd rather face Slytherin's legendary monster than let Snape catch him robbing his office. Yeah, I agree with that. I take the dragon right now. What we need, said Hermione briskly, as Thursday afternoon's double potions lesson loomed near, is a diversion. Then one of us can sneak into Snape's office and take what we need. Harry and Ron looked at her nervously. I think I'd better do the actual stealing, Hermione continued in a matter-of-fact tone. Oh, really? You two will be expelled. Oh, good thinking. You two will be expelled if you get into any more trouble, and I've got a clean record. So all you need to do is cause enough mayhem to keep Snape busy for 5 minutes or so. Harry smiled feebly. Deliberately causing mayhem in Snape's potions class was about as safe as poking a sleeping dragon in the eye. Or tickling him. That is the Hogwarts motto. I forget the actual wording. I'm gonna look it up. I know what it means. Drago, Dormeans, Nunquam, Titilandus, and it means never tickle a sleeping dragon. Yeah. Yep. Potions lessons took place in one of the large dungeons. Thursday afternoon's lesson proceeded in the usual way. 20 cauldrons stood steaming between the wooden desks, on which stood brass scales and jars of ingredients. Snape prowled through the fumes, making waspish remarks. Oh, no. Let me see. Wafting. That's the word I was thinking of. Waspish remarks, meaning like a wasp, about the Gryffindor's work, which is a good word. It's a really good word. While the Slytherin snickered appreciatively, Draco Malfoy, who was Snape's favorite student, kept flicking pufferfish eyes at Ron and Harry, who knew that if they retaliated, they would get detention faster than you could say unfair. Yeah, real mature. Harry's swelling solution was far too runny, but he had his mind on more important things. He was waiting for Hermione's signal, and he hardly listened as Snape paused to sneer at his watery potion. When Snape turned and walked off to bully Neville, Hermione caught Harry's eye and nodded. Harry ducked swiftly down below his cauldron, pulled one of Fred's filibuster fireworks out of his pocket, and gave it a quick prod with his wand. The firework began to fizz and sputter. Knowing he had only seconds, Harry straightened up, took aim, and lobbed it into the air. It landed right on target in Goyle's cauldron. Goyle's potion exploded, showering the whole class. People shrieked as splashes of the swelling solution hit them. Malfoy got a faceful and his nose began to swell like a balloon. Goyle blundered around, his hands over his eyes, which had expanded to the size of a dinner plate. Snape was trying to restore calm and find out what had happened. Through the confusion, Harry saw Hermione slip quietly into Snape's office. "Silence! Silence!" Snape roared. "Anyone who's been splashed, come here for a deflating draft. When I find out who did this." Harry tried not to laugh as he watched Malfoy hurry forward, his head drooping with the weight of a nose like a small melon. As half the class lumbered up to Snape's desk, some weighted down with arms like clubs, others unable to talk with gigantic puffed-up lips, Harry saw Hermione slide back into the dungeon, the front of her robes bulging. Why would you need a swelling solution? I don't know. When everyone... Oh, you know what? I'm not going to ask. When everyone had taken a swig of antidote and the various swellings had subsided, Snape swept over to Goyle's cauldron and scooped up the twisted black remains of the firework. There was a sudden hush. Okay. I like to leave funny remarks in my books. If I ever find out who threw this, Snape whispered, I shall make sure that person is expelled. Harry arranged his face into what he hoped was a puzzled expression. Snape was looking right at him, and the bell that rang 10 minutes later could not have been more welcome. He knew it was me, Harry told Ron and Hermione as they hurried back to Moaning Merle's bathroom. I could tell. He always thinks it's you. Hermione threw the new ingredients into the cauldron and began to stir feverishly. It'll be ready in 2 weeks, she said happily. Snape can't prove it was you, said Ron reassuringly to Harry. What can he do? Knowing Snape, something foul, said Harry as the potion frothed and bubbled. A week later, Harry, Ron, and Hermione were walking across the entrance hall when they saw a small knot of people gathered around the notice board, reading a piece of parchment that had just been pinned up. Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas beckoned them over, looking excited. They're starting a dueling club, said Seamus. First meeting tonight. I wouldn't mind dueling lessons. They might come in handy on these days. What you reckon Slytherin's monster can do? Said Ron, but he too read the sign with interest. Could be useful, he said to Harry and Hermione as they went into dinner. Shall we go? Dueling club would be awesome. I'd be into that. Harry and Hermione were all for it. Well, I mean, without Lockhart, it'd be awesome. So at 8 o'clock that evening they hurried back to the great hall. The long dining tables had vanished and a golden stage had appeared along one wall, lit by the thousands of candles floating overhead. The ceiling was velvety black once more, and most of the school seemed to be packed beneath it, all carrying their wands and looking excited. I wonder who will be teaching us, said Hermione, as they edged into the chattering crowd. Someone told me Flitwick was a dueling champion when he was young. Really? Interesting. Oh, maybe it'll be him. As long as it's not, Harry began, but he ended on a groan. Gilderoy Lockhart was walking onto the stage, resplendent in robes of deep plum, and accompanied by none other than Snape, wearing his usual black. Lockhart waved an arm for silence and called, Gather round! Gather round! Can everyone see me? Can you all hear me? Excellent. That's why he says it in the movie. You'll notice I do say a lot of things the way they say it in the movie because I can't help it. I hear it in my head that way. So, oh, yeah. I want to see that. Now, Professor Dumbledore has granted me permission to start this little dueling club, to train you all, in case you ever need to defend yourselves, as I myself have done on countless occasions. For full details, see my published works. Let me introduce my assistant, Professor Snape, said Lockhart, flashing a wide smile. He tells me he knows a tiny little bit about dueling himself, and has sportingly agreed to help me with a short demonstration before we begin. Now, I don't want any of you youngsters to worry. You'll still have your potions master when I'm through with him. Never fear. Snape would demolish him. Oh my god. I want to see that. Wouldn't it be good if they finished each other off? Ron muttered in Harry's ear. Snape's upper lip was curling. Harry wondered why Lockhart was still smiling. If Snape had been looking at him like that, he'd been running as fast as he could in the opposite direction. Yeah. Well, Lockhart isn't observant, intelligent, sensible, so of course he doesn't react the way he should. Lockhart and Snape turned to face each other and bowed. At least Lockhart did, with much twirling of his hands, whereas Snape jerked his head irritably. Then they raised their wands like swords in front of them. As you see, we are holding our wands in the accepted combative position, Lockhart told the silent crowd. On the count of 3, we will cast our first spells. Neither of us will be aiming to kill, of course. I wouldn't bet on that, Harry murmured, watching Snape baring his teeth. 1, 2, 3. Both of them swung their wands above their heads and pointed them at their opponent. Snape cried, "X." Oh my goodness. I couldn't think of how to pronounce it in that 1 second. I haven't said it in so long. Expelliarmus. Yes, of course. Expelliarmus. There was a dazzling flash of scarlet light, and Lockhart was blasted off his feet. He flew backward off the stage, smashed into the wall, and slid down it to sprawl on the floor. Malfoy and some of the other Slytherins cheered. Hermione was dancing on tiptoes. "Do you think he's all right?" she squealed through her fingers. "Who cares?" said Harry and Ron together. Lockhart was getting unsteadily to his feet. His hat had fallen off, and his wavy hair was standing on end. "Well, there you have it," he said, tottering back onto the platform. "That was a disarming charm. As you see, I've lost my wand. Ah, thank you, Miss Brown. Yes, an excellent idea to show them that, Professor Snape, but if you don't mind my saying so, it was very obvious what you were about to do. If I had wanted to stop you, it would have been only too easy. However, I felt it would be instructive to let them see." Sure. Snape was looking murderous. Possibly Lockhart had noticed, because he said, "Enough demonstrating. I'm going to come amongst you now and put you all into pairs. Professor Snape, if you'd like to help me." They moved through the crowd, matching up partners. Lockhart teamed Neville with Justin Finch-Fletchley, but Snape reached Harry and Ron first. "Time to split up the dream team, I think," he sneered. "Weasley, you can partner with Finnegan. Potter." Harry moved automatically toward Hermione. "I don't think so," said Snape, smiling coldly. "Mr. Malfoy, come over here." Of course. Why? Ugh. What did you think was going to happen, Snape? Do you really think that Malfoy is good and capable? Fine, okay. Let's see what you make of the famous Potter. And you, Miss Granger, you can partner with Miss Bulstrode. Malfoy strutted over, smirking. Behind him walked a Slytherin girl who reminded Harry of a picture he'd seen in Holidays with Hags. That's so mean. She was large and square, and her heavy jaw jutted aggressively. Hermione gave her a weak smile that she did not return. "Face your partners," called Lockhart back on the platform, "and bow." Harry and Malfoy barely inclined their heads, not taking their eyes off each other. "Wands at the ready," shouted Lockhart. "When I count to 3, cast your charms to disarm your opponents. Only to disarm them. We don't want any accidents. 1, 2, 3. Harry swung his wand high, but Malfoy had already started on 2, because he's a cheater. He can only do anything by cheating. Yeah. His spell hit Harry so hard he felt as though he'd been hit over the head with a saucepan. He stumbled, but everything still seemed to be working, and wasting no more time, Harry pointed his wand straight at Malfoy and shouted, "Rictus Sempra!" Oh my gosh! 1 second. Okay, so if you love Harry Potter, and you love comedy and fun, and you love the Harry Potter video games, you should definitely check out Call Me Kevin's playlist on playing the Harry Potter games. He's played them all, sort of. He attempted Goblet of Fire and quit. But he has this whole playlist on YouTube about playing the Harry Potter games, and just when I see the spell Rictus Sempra. What is it supposed to do? A jet of silver light hit Malfoy in the stomach and he doubled up wheezing. I don't know. But in the game, it's supposed to bring out this strand, and it's supposed to, isn't it? Or, oh, no. That's not it. Anyway, I don't remember what game it was. I don't remember who was saying the spell, but he just kept clicking the spell, and he just kept going, Rictus Sem, Rictus Sem, Rictus Sem, Rictus Sem, and it just makes me laugh. It just tickles me just so. But you should check out those videos. They're hilarious. A jet of silver light hit Malfoy in the stomach, and he doubled up wheezing. What was the spell I was thinking of? That's Carpe Retractum. That's right. The spell, it shoots out an elastic band from your wand that attaches to things, and you can pull things. That's the spell I was thinking of. Carpe Retractum. But this is Rict Sempra, which I guess is just a combative spell. I don't know exactly what it does. I said disarm only, Lockhart shouted in alarm over the heads of the battling crowd as Malfoy sank to his knees. Harry had hit him with a tickling charm. Is that what that was? That's what it does? Oh. Well, the movie and the games get it wrong, because it definitely isn't a tickling charm in the movie. And I don't think it is in the games either. And he could barely move for laughing. Harry hung back with a vague feeling it would be unsporting to bewitch Malfoy while he was on the floor. I agree. But Malfoy would do the same to you, let's be honest. But this was a mistake. Gasping for breath, Malfoy pointed his wand at Harry's knees, choked, Terratental... Oh, jeez. These spells are hard to say in a British accent quickly, as if you know what you're saying. Terrantalegra. And the next second, Harry's legs began to jerk around out of control in a kind of quick step. These are weird spells. Stop! Stop! Screamed Lockhart, but Snape took charge. Venite incantatem, he shouted. Venite incantatem. That's right. Harry's feet stopped dancing. Malfoy stopped laughing, and they were able to look up. A haze of greenish smoke was hovering over the scene. Both Neville and Justin were lying on the floor, panting. Ron was holding up an ashen-faced Seamus, apologizing for whatever his broken wand had done. But Hermione and Millicent Bulstrode were still moving. Millicent had Hermione in a headlock, and Hermione was whimpering in pain. Both their wands lay forgotten on the floor. Harry leapt forward and pulled Millicent off. Good for Harry, stepping in. It was difficult. She was a lot bigger than he was. Dear, dear, said Lockhart, skittering through the crowd, looking at the aftermath of the duels. Up you go, Macmillan. Careful there, Miss Fawcett. Pinch it hard. It'll stop bleeding in a second, Boot. I think I'd better teach you how to block unfriendly spells, said Lockhart, standing flustered in the midst of the hall. He glanced at Snape, whose black eyes glinted, and looked quickly away. Let's have a volunteer pair. Longbottom and Finch-Fletchley. How about you? A bad idea, Professor Lockhart, said Snape, gliding over like a large and malevolent bat. Longbottom causes devastation with the simplest spells. We'll be sending what's left of Finch-Fletchley up to the hospital wing in a matchbox. Sorry, not sorry. I love to say it the way they do. But it's supposed to be Ron in the, Ron and Harry in the movie. Anyway. Neville's round pink face went pinker. How about Malfoy and Potter? Said Snape with a twisted smile. Excellent idea, said Lockhart, gesturing Harry and Malfoy into the middle of the hall as the crowd backed away to give them room. Now, Harry, said Lockhart, when Draco points his wand at you, you do this. He raised his own wand, attempted a complicated sort of wiggling action, and dropped it. Snape smirked at Lockhart, quickly picked it up, saying, Whoops, the wand is a little overexcited. Snape moved closer to Malfoy, bent down, and whispered something in his ear. Malfoy smirked, too. Harry looked up nervously at Lockhart and said, Professor, could you show me that blocking thing again? Show you what, dropping his wand? Scared, muttered Malfoy so that Lockhart couldn't hear him. You wish, said Harry out of the corner of his mouth. Oh, yeah. It's so great that that moment is actually in the book. I mean, it's not quite the same, but still pretty cool. Lockhart cuffed Harry merrily on the shoulder. Just do what I did, Harry. What? What? Drop my wand? That is what he says. But Lockhart wasn't listening. 3, 2, 1, go, he shouted. Malfoy raised his wand quickly and bellowed, Serpensortia! The end of his wand exploded. Harry watched, aghast, as a long black snake shot out of it, fell heavily on the floor between them, and raised itself, ready to strike. There were screams as the crowd backed swiftly away, clearing the floor. Don't move, Potter, said Snape lazily, clearly enjoying the sight of Harry standing motionless, eye to eye with the angry snake. I'll get rid of it. Allow me, shouted Lockhart. He brandished his wand at the snake, and there was a loud bang. The snake, instead of vanishing, flew 10 feet into the air and fell back to the ground with a loud smack. Enraged, hissing furiously, it slithered straight toward Justin Finch Fletchley and raised itself again, fangs exposed, poised to strike. And now, getting to another important part. Harry wasn't sure what made him do it. He wasn't even aware of deciding to do it. All he knew was that his legs were carrying him forward as though he was on casters. Casters. Gotta look up another word. What are casters? Wheels? An undriven wheel. Designed to be attached to the bottom of a larger object to enable the object to be moved. Casters are used in numerous applications, including shopping carts, office chairs, toy wagons, hospital beds, and material handling equipment. Here, I'll show you guys. Maybe. I'll show you guys what it is. This, right there. Oh. Ew. I would have just called them wheels. I'll just get rid of it. Okay. I'll just put wheels. And that he had shouted stupidly at the snake, "Leave him alone!" And miraculously, inexplicably, the snake slumped to the floor, docile as a thick black garden hose, its eyes now on Harry. Harry felt the fear drain out of him. He knew the snake wouldn't attack anyone now, though how he knew it, he couldn't have explained. He looked up at Justin, grinning, expecting to see Justin looking relieved, or puzzled, or even grateful, but certainly not angry and scared. "What do you think you're playing at?" he shouted, and before Harry could say anything, Justin had turned and stormed out of the hall. Snape stepped forward, waved his wand, and the snake vanished in a small puff of black smoke. Snape, too, was looking at Harry in an unexpected way. It was a shrewd and calculating look, and Harry didn't like it. That's done really well in the movie. How even Snape looks kind of like shocked when he's looking at him. It's really good. He was also dimly aware of an ominous muttering all around the walls. Then he felt a tugging on the back of his robes. "Come on," said Ron's voice in his ear. "Move. Come on." Ron steered him out of the hall, Hermione hurrying alongside them. As they went through the doors, the people on either side drew away as though they were frightened of catching something. Harry didn't have a clue what was going on, and neither Ron nor Hermione explained anything until they had dragged him all the way up the empty Gryffindor common room. Then Ron pushed Harry into an armchair and said, "You're a Parselmouth. Why didn't you tell us?" "I'm a what?" said Harry. "A Parselmouth," said Ron. "You can talk to snakes." Another line. Ron had that line, but it's Hermione in the movie. "I know," said Harry. "I mean, that's only the second time I've ever done it. I accidentally set a boa constrictor on my cousin Dudley at the zoo once. It was a python in the movie. Or he said it was a python. Long story, but it was telling me it had never seen Brazil, and I sort of set it free without meaning to. That was before I knew I was a wizard. A boa constrictor told you I'd never seen Brazil," Ron repeated faintly. "So?" said Harry. "I bet loads of people here can do it." "Oh, no, they can't," said Ron. "It's not a very common gift, Harry. This is bad." "What's bad?" said Harry, starting to feel quite angry. "What's wrong with everyone? Listen, if I hadn't told that snake not to attack Justin—" "Oh, that's what you said to it." "What do you mean? You were there. You heard me." "I heard you speaking parcel tongue," said Ron. "Snake language. You could have been saying anything. No wonder Justin panicked. You sounded like you were egging the snake on or something. It was creepy, you know." Harry gaped at him. "I spoke a different language? But I didn't realize... How can I speak a language without knowing I can speak it?" Ron shook his head. Both he and Hermione were looking as though someone had died. Harry couldn't see what was so terrible. "Do you want to tell me what's wrong with stopping a massive snake biting off Justin's head?" he said. What does it matter how I did it, as long as Justin doesn't have to join the headless hunt? It matters, said Hermione, speaking at last in a hushed voice, because being able to talk to snakes was what Salazar Slytherin was famous for. That's why the symbol of Slytherin House is a serpent. Harry's mouth fell open. Exactly, said Ron. And now the whole school's going to think you're his great-great-great-great-grandson or something. But I'm not, said Harry with a panic he couldn't quite explain. You'll find that hard to prove, said Hermione. He lived about 1,000 years ago. For all we know, you could be. I don't know about grandson, but they are related, possibly, very possibly. I think, Harry and Voldemort are distant cousins, and you can prove it. I wrote it all over this page. You are the great-grandson of Ignotus Peverell. I was talking to Harry. He says, Harry is the long great-grandson of Ignotus Peverell. And Voldemort is the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of... It's actually Antioch. I thought it was Cadmus, but it's actually Antioch Peverell. And Voldemort is the heir of Slytherin. So Harry might very loosely be related to Salazar Slytherin. Voldemort and Harry are something like third cousins. Ish. Harry is probably not a direct descendant, but he is related. Possibly. We know that Harry is related to Ignotus Peverell because the invisibility cloak was passed down from father to son, and it's a true, authentic invisibility cloak. We figure all this out in Deathly Hallows. And so he received the cloak from his father all the way back to Ignotus Peverell. And Harry figures it out. Harry outright tells us, I'm related to Ignotus Peverell. He figures it out. And then Voldemort is related to Antioch Peverell because Half-Blood Prince, when we see... so Voldemort's mother is... I don't know how to pronounce her name. Merope. Merope? Maybe? Merope. And her father, Voldemort's grandfather, is Marvolo Gaunt. And a memory that we see in Half-Blood Prince, he's wearing the family ring. It is a family heirloom, he specifically says. And there's a stone in that ring that's been passed down in his family for generations. And that stone is the Resurrection Stone. That's how Dumbledore gets it. Voldemort has no idea that he has the Resurrection Stone when he gets the ring and turns into a Horcrux. But Dumbledore defeats the ring and takes the stone, the Resurrection Stone. So the Resurrection Stone was passed down in the Gaunt family, which had to have been a descendant of Antioch, and Voldemort is related to the Gaunt, so he's related to Antioch. Long story, but figure all that out later. Kind of not really that important for now, but anyway, he might be somewhat related to Salazar Slytherin. That's the point I'm trying to make. Harry lay awake for hours that night. Through a gap in the curtains around his four-poster, he watched snow starting to drift past the tower window and wondered, could he be a descendant of Salazar Slytherin? He didn't know anything about his father's family, after all. The Dursleys had always forbidden questions about his wizarding relatives. I doubt they'd know anyway. Quietly, Harry tried to say something in Parseltongue. The words wouldn't come. It seemed he had to be face-to-face with a snake to do it. And apparently you can learn it, too. But I'm in Gryffindor, Harry thought. The Sorting Hat wouldn't have put me in here if I had Slytherin blood. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Sirius Black had Slytherin blood, but he was sorted into Gryffindor. Ah, said a nasty little voice in his brain, but the Sorting Hat wanted to put you in Slytherin, don't you remember? We all have that voice, don't we? That voice of doubt. Harry turned over. He'd seen Justin the next day, and He'd see Justin the next day in herbology, and he'd explain that he'd been calling the snake off, not egging it on, which, he thought angrily, pummeling his pillow, any fool should have realized. Yeah. Again, Harry questioning, is he good? And struggling with his own self-identity. By next morning, however, the snow had begun in the night. He turned into a what? By next morning, however, the snow that had begun in the night had turned into a blizzard so thick that the last herbology lesson of the term was cancelled. Woohoo! Snow day! Professor Sprout wanted to fit socks and scarves on the mandrakes, a tricky operation she would entrust to no one else, now that it was so important for the mandrakes to grow quickly and revive Mrs. Norris and Colin Creevey. Harry fretted about this next to the fire in the Gryffindor common room, while Ron and Hermione used their time off to play a game of wizard chess. "For heaven's sake, Harry," said Hermione, exasperated as one of Ron's bishops wrestled her knight off his horse and dragged him off the board. Something Ron is better at than Hermione, chess. "Go and find Justin if it's so important to you." So Harry got up and left through the portrait hole, wondering where Justin might be. The castle was darker than it usually was in daytime, because of the thick, swirling gray snow at every window. Shivering, Harry walked past classrooms where lessons were taking place, catching snatches of what was happening within. Professor McGonagall was shouting at someone who, by the sound of it, had turned his friend into a badger. Resisting the urge to take a look, Harry walked on by, thinking that Justin might be using his free time to catch up on some work, and decided to check the library first. A group of the Hufflepuffs who should have been in herbology were indeed sitting at the back of the library, but they didn't seem to be working. Between the long lines of high bookshelves, Harry could see that their heads were close together and they were having what looked like an absorbing conversation. He couldn't see whether Justin was among them. He was walking toward them when something of what they were saying met his ears, and he paused to listen, hidden in the invisibility section. Interesting section to be hidden in. Okay, this scene is in a deleted scene of the film. And you will see it if you watch the extended version. "So anyway," a stout boy was saying, "I told Justin to hide up in our dormitory. I mean to say, if Potter's marked him down as his next victim, it's best if he keeps a low profile for a while. Of course, Justin's been waiting for something like this to happen ever since he let slip to Potter he was a Muggle-born. Justin actually told him he'd been down for Eton. That's not the kind of thing you bandy about with Slytherin's eye on the loose, is it?" "You definitely think it is Potter then, Ernie?" said a girl with blonde pigtails anxiously. "Hannah," said the stout boy solemnly, "he's a Parselmouth. Everyone knows it's the mark of a dark wizard. Have you ever heard of a decent one who could talk to snakes?" "They called Slytherin himself Serpent Tongue." There was some heavy murmuring at this, and Ernie went on. "Remember what was written on the wall? Enemies of the air, beware. Potter had some sort of run-in with Filch. Next thing we know, Filch's cat's attacked. That first year, Creevey was annoying Potter at the Quidditch match, taking pictures of him while he was lying in the mud. Next thing we know, Creevey's been attacked. He's always been so nice, though," said Hannah uncertainly. "And, well, he's the one who made you-know-who disappear. He can't be all bad, can he?" Ernie lowered his voice mysteriously. The Hufflepuffs bent closer, and Harry edged nearer so that he could catch Ernie's words. "No one knows how he survived that attack by you-know-who. I mean to say, he was only a baby when it happened. He should have been blasted into smithereens. Only a really powerful dark wizard could have survived a curse like that." He dropped his voice until it was barely more than a whisper and said, "That's probably why you-know-who wanted to kill him in the first place. Didn't want another Dark Lord competing with them. I wonder what other powers Potter's been hiding." Harry couldn't take any more. Clearing his throat loudly, he stepped out from behind the bookshelves. If he hadn't been feeling so angry, he would have found the sight that greeted him funny. Every one of the Hufflepuffs looked at them as though petrified by the sight of him. And the color was draining out of Ernie's face. I'm funny. I like what I wrote there. Harry should have messed with them. If they really think he's the air Slytherin, he should have just looked at them and went. That's what I wrote here. Oh man, that would have been great. Oh, that would have been just the best. Hello, said Harry. I'm looking for Justin Finch Fletchley. Yes, that is the best thing to say in this situation. I continue with my joke. You should have said, I'm looking for Justin Finch Fletchley. Oh, and they're like, what do you want with him? And I put, I'm feeling hungry. I'm feeling murderous. You should have messed with them. The Hufflepuff's worst fears had clearly been confirmed. They all looked fearfully at Ernie. What do you want with him? Said Ernie in a quivering voice. I wanted to tell him what really happened with that snake of a Dueling Club, said Harry. Ernie bit his white lips, and then, taking a deep breath, said, We were all there. We saw what happened. Shut up, Ernie. That's what I wrote next to that. Then you noticed that after I spoke to it, the snake backed off, said Harry. All I saw, said Ernie stubbornly, though he was trembling as he spoke, was you speaking Parseltongue and chasing the snake toward Justin. I didn't chase it at him, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. I didn't even touch him. It didn't even touch him. It was a very near miss, said Ernie. And in case you're getting ideas, he added hastily, I might tell you that you can trace my family back through 9 generations of witches and warlocks, and my blood's as pure as anyone's, so it don't matter. That I would have said to him, that don't matter. I don't care what sort of blood you've got, said Harry fiercely. Why would I want to attack Muggle-borns? I've heard you hate those Muggles you live with, said Ernie swiftly. It's not possible to live with the Dursleys and not hate them, said Harry. I'd like to see you try it. This is such an interesting conversation. I feel like I was going to say something or write something down or something. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the library, earning himself a reproving glare from Madame Pince, who was polishing the gilded cover of a large spell book. Harry blundered up the corridor, barely noticing where he was going. He was in such a fury. The result was that he walked into something very large and solid, which knocked him backward onto the floor. Oh, hello, Hagrid, Harry said, looking up. Hagrid's face was entirely hidden by a woolly, snow-covered balaclava, but it couldn't possibly be anyone else, as he filled most of the corridor in his moleskin overcoat. A dead rooster was hanging from one of his massive gloved hands. Hagrid is also a red herring as to who the heir Slytherin is, because he was expelled for opening the chamber. We'll figure that out soon. In his 3rd year, and he likes monsters, and he was suspiciously found in Nocturne Alley, where dark wizards shop, and now he has a dead rooster. And we will find out later that the only thing that can kill a basilisk is the cry of a rooster. I want you to remember that a few chapters back, Ginny Weasley was found at Hagrid's hut. And we know that she's actually more or less the culprit. All right, Harry, he said, pulling up the balaclava so he could speak. Why aren't you in class? Cancelled, said Harry, getting up. What are you doing in here? Hagrid held up the limp rooster. Second one killed this term, he explained. Either foxes or a blood-sucking bugbear, and I need the headmaster's permission to put a charm around the hen coop. He peered more closely at Harry from under his thick, snow-flecked eyebrows. You sure you're all right? You look all hot and bothered. Yeah, the scene is in the extended version as well. Harry couldn't bring himself to repeat what Ernie and the rest of the Hufflepuffs had been saying about him. It's nothing, he said. I'd better get going, Hagrid. It's transfiguration next, and I've got to pick up my books. He walked off, his mind still full of what Ernie had said about him. Justin's been waiting for something like this to happen ever since he had let slip to Potter he was a Muggleborn. Harry stomped up the stairs and turned along another corridor, which was particularly dark. The torches had been extinguished by a strong, icy draft that was blowing through a loose window pane. He was halfway down the passage when he tripped headlong over something lying on the floor. Oh, no. Oh, so after that whole scene, this happens, and it looks really bad. Justin Finch-Fletchley was lying on the floor, rigid and cold, a look of shock frozen on his face, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. And that wasn't all. Next to him was another figure, the strangest sight Harry had ever seen. It was nearly of his neck, no longer pearly white and transparent, but black and smoky, floating, immobile, and horizontal, 6 inches off the floor. "Get out of there! Run, Harry, run! You don't want to be seen here!" Yikes! His head was half off, and his face wore an expression of shock identical to Justin's. Harry got to his feet, his breathing fast and shallow, his heart doing a kind of drum roll against his ribs. He looked wildly up and down the deserted corridor and saw a line of spiders scuttling as fast as they could away from the bodies. The only sounds were the muffled voices of teachers from the classes on either side. He could run, and no one would ever know he had been there. But he couldn't just leave them lying there. He had to get help. Would anyone believe he hadn't had anything to do with this? As he stood there panicking, a door right next to him opened with a bang. Peeves the poltergeist came shooting out. "Why, it's Potty Wee Potter!" cackled Peeves, knocking Harry's glasses askew as he bounced past him. "What's Potter up to? Where's Potter lurking?" Peeves stopped, halfway through a mid-air somersault. Upside down he spotted Justin and nearly headless Nick. He flipped the right way up, filled his lungs, and before Harry could stop him, screamed, "Attack! Attack! Another attack! No mortal or ghost is safe! Run for your lives! Attack!" Crash! 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 Door after door flew open along the corridor, and people flooded out. Oh, it's better in the movie. It's less painful. For several long minutes there was a scene of such confusion that Justin was in danger of being squashed, and people kept standing and nearly headless Nick. Harry found himself pinned against the wall as the teachers shouted for quiet. Professor McGonagall came running, followed by her own class, one of whom still had black and white striped hair. She followed her own class, one of whom still had black and white striped hair. Oh, the badger. Right. She used her wand to set off a loud bang, which restored silence and ordered everyone back into their classes. No sooner had the scene cleared somewhat than Ernie the Hufflepuff arrived, panting on the scene. "Caught in the act." It was filth to the movie. Ernie yelled, his face stark white, pointing his finger dramatically at Harry. "That will do, Macmillan," said Professor McGonagall sharply. Peeves was bobbing overhead, now grinning wickedly, surveying the scene. Peeves always loved chaos. As the teachers bent over Justin and nearly headless Nick, examining them, Peeves broke into song. "Oh, Potter, you rotter! Oh, what have you done? You're killing our students! You think it's good fun!" "That's enough, Peeves," barked Professor McGonagall, and Peeves zoomed away backward, with his tongue out at Harry. Justin was carried up to the hospital wing by Professor Flitwick and Professor Sinistra of the astronomy department, but nobody seemed to know what to do for nearly headless Nick. In the end, Professor McGonagall conjured a large fan out of thin air, which she gave to Ernie, with instructions to waft nearly headless Nick up the stairs. This Ernie did, fanning Nick along like a silent black hovercraft. So wind affects him, but you can't actually touch him. Interesting. This Ernie did, fanning Nick along such a silent black... Right. This left Harry and Professor McGonagall alone together. "This way, Potter," she said. "Professor," said Harry at once. "I swear I didn't. This is out of my hands, Potter," said Professor McGonagall curtly. They marched in silence around a corner, and she stopped before a large and extremely ugly stone gargoyle. "Lemon drop," she said. It's a bit more dramatic in the movie. This was evidently a password because the gargoyle sprang suddenly to life and hopped aside as the wall behind him split in two. Even full of dread for what was coming, Harry couldn't fail to be amazed. Behind the wall was a spiral staircase that was moving smoothly upward like an escalator. As he and Professor McGonagall stepped onto it, Harry heard the wall thud closed behind him. They rose upward in circles, higher and higher, until at last, slightly dizzy, Harry saw a gleaming oak door ahead with a brass knocker in the shape of a griffin. And griffins are often a symbol for Christianity, Christ, in medieval mythology. He knew now where he was being taken. This must be where Dumbledore lived. And that is the end of Chapter 11. Chapter 12, Polyjuice Potion. What is Chapter 13? The Very Secret Diary. My favorite chapter will be, well, if I do stream again, I probably won't. But if I do, we will be reading my favorite chapter. But if not, then I will upload my reading of that chapter in the next 2 uploads of Storytime Saturday, if it's still on Saturday. Because if I do upload them, I plan on just doing it 1 chapter at a time so the videos aren't super long. But that is the end of the chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. So, yeah. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description, and I'll let you know what's going on as soon as I know what's going on. Might do random streams, but scheduled streams might be a thing of the past for now. But I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy it, please leave a comment down below on the video. If you're watching this after the fact, please leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the video. Please leave a like on the video or on the stream, whether it's live or not, it still helps. And click the subscribe button if you want more content like this, and click the bell icon so you can be notified the next time I upload or the next time I go live, if I go live. And again, follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye-bye.